Okay, I want to make this video because I'm sure this video, a version of this video exists somewhere, but when I first started learning how to crochet, it didn't, which made picking yarn an adventure. So every single yarn will come with this paper or a paper of this kind. And there's a lot of information. Like, don't throw this out like I did when I started. So it has a lot of information and I'm gonna walk you through that, okay? So first, obviously you've got your brand, okay? It also, any special features. So this yarn is anti-pilling, but it's also important to know that it's made out of acrylic. It's important because generally you wanna use, if you're changing yarn, like using two different yarns, you wanna generally keep the type the same. I will tell you, I find it easier to just use the exact same yarn in a different color, but you do whatever works for you. It also tells you how much yarn is in the pack, right? So it gives you the grams and ounces, but it also gives you the length in yards and meters, okay? Now what's really important is this back portion. So probably one of the not as important stuff, it'll often tell you, and it's not that it's not as important, but more obvious, it'll tell you the color, right? The official color, as well as those other number details back there. Okay, here, if you knit, it tells you what size knitting needles ideally you should use for this yarn. If you crochet, it tells you what size hook you should use for this yarn ideally, which is a US 7 or a 4.5 millimeter hook, right? It also tells you the weight of the yarn, which is just how thick the yarn is, but that's important because if you're using if you're making a blanket, you don't want to use number 1 yarn, you want to use 6, right? It also tells you here about how many bundles, or they call them skeins of yarn that they give you in the pack you would need to make these various objects. So if you wanted to make a blanket with this yarn, they say, well, you're going to probably need about 6 bundles or skeins, an adult sweater, 5, in a hat, you're only gonna need 1, and for a scarf, you're gonna need about 3, okay? And the last thing here is they give you washing instructions. So after you've made whatever it is, you know exactly what conditions to wash it in, okay? The only thing to keep in mind is sometimes a pattern will actually call to use a different sized hook than the one that's recommended, so always keep that in mind. For example, if you're making an amigurumi or a little animal, you'll often go down either 0.5 millimeters or a whole millimeter size hook. If you're trying to make something with more holes in it, you might go up. So just keep that in mind. Certain patterns might actually have you deviate from what is recommended on your paper. Please let me know if you have questions. And as silly as I feel saying this, please do like and subscribe. And please, please, please share it with a friend or an enemy or whomever and get them to do the same. Thanks, guys.